We are in the era of the microbiome now, and we are really at its infancy, even though for functional medicine we've been doing this for 30 years. And effectively, we kind of didn't know all the reasons why everything was working, and now we're learning and growing about it. And it's just an extraordinary time.
The critical nature of the microbiome. If there's one organ that's most important, it's the microbiome.
We really are in the area of research where the microbiome is really hitting all fields. So the microbiome health is impacting cardiology, neurology, immunology, endocrinology, that they're finding your gut microbiome can impact all these different disease processes. Now, they're still trying to figure out how, but they do know that the more diverse your gut is, that the more protective effects you have through all these different diseases.
For me, our body is not belonging to us. I think our body is belonging to our microbiota. So the question is why we have this huge amount of bacteria. Because they play more strategic role than before.
We have to really change the way we look at ourselves. When we look at our chromosomes, we've got 22,000 functional genes. Sounds like a lot, but you compare that to a rice plant or an earthworm that has double the amount of genes, we don't start to look that cool anymore, right? And so we're like, how do we conduct all the functions that we do on a daily basis with such limited number of genes? And as it turns out, the microbial genes within our body amount to about 3.3 million in total. So we've got 150 times more bacterial viral DNA in our body than human DNA. And it's looking like 99% of metabolic function, things that we do on a daily basis that make us human, are coded for by bacterial and viral DNA. So we can barely do anything for ourselves, right? And so we need the microbial DNA to conduct necessary function to live, to digest food, to breathe, even how our emotions and our view of the world are concentrated and how they're characterized are dependent on the types of microbes and microbial DNA we have in our system.
So I think of our microbiota kind of like our superheroes. Right at the gut lining, at that sterile zone, they hover right above the sterile zone of mucus, and then where we are absorbing food, they help us absorb food, digest food, break down food.
It has its own metabolites, it has its own way of generating energy, it has its own particular functions. There are things that we derive from it exclusively, for example, like vitamin B12 and K2, vitamin K, all of these things are coming from your microbiota.
And we now know that it's not just important to avoid digestive symptoms, but so many issues from autism to ADD to autoimmune disease to cancer to diabetes to obesity. All of it's really important. And so we're in a really fundamental shift in the paradigm, and the microbiome is sort of leading the way around that.
The microbiota, 78% of which are gut microbiota, is what we're focused on currently in terms of health. Now, the gut microbiota weigh about 2 kilos, or about 4 pounds, and they're considered a postnatal organ, meaning they grow after birth. So when a child passes through the vaginal canal in spontaneous vaginal delivery, what happens is that it gets inoculated with the maternal bacterial microorganisms. In the first year of life, it has an adult fingerprint, meaning it's as unique as you in terms of your identity as an individual. And then to age 2 to 3 years, there's an increasing bacterial diversity, but there's a decrease in inter-individual variability, meaning it's set for you. Because it's a forest down there, it's like an entire ecosystem that comprises the gut microbiota as an organ.
So there are two terms that are used interchangeably, microbiota and microbiome. And often they're confused. So microbiota is actually the microbes, the population of microbes, including viruses and bacteria and all that exists in any given part of the body. For example, the skin has a totally different microbiota. The gut and different parts of the gut have different microbiotas. The eyeball has a different microbiota. The placenta does. So those are the population of bacteria, viruses, and other organisms that exist. Microbiome is the totality of microbes and all their genetic elements. And that's where things change, because the genetic elements of the microbes really determine health and wellness in many ways. We now know that we really can't even start to think about longevity and how we're going to live, into our hundreds, for example, without disease, without being propped up by medication, without really addressing the ecology of our body, and all of the things that we're doing to destroy that ecology on a daily basis.
Learning how to actually take care of our inner garden and tend to our inner garden is probably one of the most important things we have to learn how to do. And that means diet. It means actually the right fiber and probiotics, and also even things like dealing with stress, because that changes the flora that grow in there. And it happens dynamically. Every bite of food you take, you change your flora. If you eat X in the morning and you check your flora, it's going to look one way. If you eat Y at night and check it, it's going to look a different way. And so how do we then begin to sort of use that knowledge to create health? So really, really important concept is you have to tend to your inner garden and learn what supports it and what harms it.